Here's a question for you. If someone tells you about a friend that's big-hearted, or when you describe someone as big-hearted, you definitely like them immediately, right? Well, in today's episode, Heather Gibson joins me, and she's the founder of, you can probably guess this one, Big Hearted Breeders. And guess what? You're going to like her and her organization too, just like all big-hearted people and things. Now, some of you out there right now are probably thinking, adopt, don't shop. I get it. But I want you to have an open mind and listen to her story. You know, sometimes there can also be two rights. Now, let me give you some background. Heather started her, and I'm going to use her terminology, ethical breeding organization for multiple reasons. And we get into that, but just a sec, get this one. She breeds, get this one, mini golden retrievers. Frankly, I'd never heard of them. And let me tell you, cute doesn't even do them justice. Now, I want you to know, I'm a rescue dog owner and an adopt, don't shop person. And I really needed an open mind on this one. And I promise you, Heather really opened my mind. And I'm pretty sure she's going to open yours too. So listen to this. I asked her right off, what message did she want to get out to everybody? And her big-hearted response was this. There are a lot of people out there that just need a companion for support. And I want big-hearted breeders to help support that. See what I mean? So get ready and really, really listen, because this episode, it really is a story about being big-hearted.
For real, 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 for real. Got a bunch of furry friends and I love them all the same. I'm an animal lover, veterinarian is the name. Let's share some pet stories from heartwarming to strange, losses and gains, from wacky to insane. For real. You're now tuned in to For Real with your host, Markakyle.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the For Real Podcast. Today, I have a really big treat for you. My guest is Heather Gibson, and we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. And so I want to introduce Heather to you. Heather, welcome to the show. And actually, I'm going to let you introduce you to everybody. But thank you for joining the show. And I think we have some really cool stuff to talk about. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here. So a little bit about me. I've been breeding or raising animals, both cats and dogs, for about 13 years now. I started out with cats and I moved to dogs. And kind of an interesting story about how I got started was actually I was a foster parent for children. And as we were going through that phase of our lives, it was over a decade that we had children coming in and out of our home, we noticed the power that our pets that we had in the home were having with these children, that it was helping them deal with stress and trauma that they had been through, that the therapists were sometimes stumped about how to get around and past. And so we started out with just pets, and then I started doing a small amount of breeding. And now I just love the work that I do and the changes that I get to see in families and in homes as pets are placed in a way that is a good fit for both the pet and the family. And then they really make an amazing addition to the home.
Well, responsible adoption, but I'm going to go farther back.
Okay.
So here we go, because this is me being me and that. So, and I also want to get more into your foster children. You have four, am I right on four?
Yeah.
Is that the right number?
Four adopted from foster care, and then I have 3 biological children, so 7 total.
So you got one for every day of the week. So anyway, I'm sure you've used that term before. But I want to go back in time. So prior to being a foster parent and also having children, and I want to kind of get into that story too, because I think it's wonderful. Were you always an animal person? Let's just talk about you. Let's get to know you. I want everybody to know you so they understand your journey, and then we're going to get into all the dogs and cats and whatever else is.
Yeah, so when I was young, I always thought I wanted to be a vet. That was what I thought about a lot. I did love animals. I lived on a 2-acre piece of land with my family, so we had cats. We had dogs when I was really young, but not older, and horses. And so I actually taught horseback riding and did different things growing up. and have always loved animals. But honestly, young, I never ever thought about being a breeder or doing what I'm doing now.
So first of all, where was that?
Taylorsville, Utah.
So you stayed in Utah the entire time now because you're still in Utah. So, what's funny is I don't know that I've met anybody. I meet people all the time that they're veterinarians that always wanted to be that want to be in the animal world, veterinarians or whatever, always like animal. I'm always jealous of people like yourself because I still don't know what I want to be. I never grew up going, I think I'll be on a podcast. It's one of those weird deals where I'm always impressed by people that always kind of had some vision. They don't realize that vision, but they had some kind of vision going there. So you're a kid growing up in Utah, you live in a ranch, and then let's move a little bit farther to there. I want to take everybody on your journey, and then we're going to get to what you're doing.
Yeah, I think you give all of us too much credit because we're all stumbling around figuring out life.
I'm a big stumbler, bumbler. Trust me.
Yep. Yeah. So, I guess going forward a little bit, I got married. I lived in California for a few years while my husband was going to graduate school. Has a PhD in marriage and family therapy. And that's actually where we started our foster care journey. So we became certified foster parents in San Bernardino County in California, and had several children come and go from our home there. And
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. You don't know this. I lived before I moved to where I'm in Texas now. I lived in Temecula.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that world pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we adopted one of our sons, came from our foster placements while we were in San Bernardino County. He actually was from LA County. LA County had a lot of children, and so sometimes they had to place outside the county. And so that's kind of where our foster care journey started. And it wasn't until later, because we actually didn't have pets while we were living in California. We moved back to Utah, and were living there when we had 2 dogs. And we had 4 kids at the time, and everybody was fighting over the 2 dogs,
So were the 4, wait, hold on really quick. 4 kids, were all 4, were they fosters or some of your natural born as well?
So we had 2 natural born and 2 foster.
That's cool.
Yep. Our biological kids and our foster kids are kind of mixed in between. So it goes.
That's awesome.
Biological, adopted, biological, adopted. So yeah. So we were there. We weren't allowed to have more than 2 dogs. And so that's how I started falling in love with cats. I mean, I'd grown up with cats, but we decided to find a dog-like cat, and stumbled into the breed Tonkinese. Nobody's probably ever heard of it.
I haven't, and I got an animal podcast. I have no idea.
So Tonkinese are a mix of Burmese and Siamese. They're incredibly smart. We still have a pet Tonkinese, and she loves to play fetch. She's incredibly intelligent and cunning and mischievous, all in the same cute little kitty. But that's where we fell in love with these cats, and we couldn't really find them. And we were approached by one of the breeders after we had bought 2 for just being a pet cat. It's like, hey, you're getting a 3rd. Would you ever consider doing a litter? And because of my background in loving pets, I was like, oh, yeah, I could see that, because we were seeing the difference it was making in our kids and the way that they were kind of coming out of their shells. And if you know anything about anybody with trauma, it's very hard to get physical touch sometimes from a human. Like, it brings up trauma, but they would accept that love from a pet. So whether it was our 2 dogs or one of our cats, in fact, there was kind of the pivotal story in my journey. We had 2 girls that we had as placements, and their background was just honestly horrific. Kind of the tip of the iceberg was they were removed by a SWAT team after their father was involved in a double homicide, and the 2 girls were kidnapped by one of the people that had unfortunately been killed. And so really a dramatic story, but the truth is just what they had lived through before that. It was really that's one thing you could point to, but their whole life was very chaotic and traumatic. And so anyway, my daughter was sitting there. She was 4 when she came to us.
4?
Yeah, 4 years old.
Wow.
She came on her 4th birthday, and she was sitting. I remember her sitting in the living room, and just the look on her face, I could tell like she was full of all these emotions. And I remember going over to her and just saying, "Hey, you look like you're really struggling. Do you want to talk about it?" She was probably 6 at the time. And she said, "I can't talk to you about it, Mom." And that was kind of her pattern. Like, it was hard to speak what was going on inside her. I remember she used to sit up at night and she was sure that she was hearing gunshots out her bedroom window. And so a lot of trauma going on. And I said, just this mom trying to help my daughter, and my heart's breaking. And I remember asking her, is there anyone you could talk to? Because we need to find someone that you can talk to. Do I need to schedule another therapy session? Like, what can we do? And she turned to me, and with these huge, gorgeous brown eyes, she just said, "I can talk to the cat." And I'll tell you, that moment really changed my world. And I've watched with all my children, and even the ones that pretend like they don't love pets, the cat will come up and snuggle on them, or they'll have their special dog. And I just see it change their lives and kind of open up and crack through some of those really guarded places that they've kept up because of the trauma they've been through.
Do you think it's a trust thing?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of her trauma was what they call pre-verbal trauma. So it's before she could talk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So she couldn't really express it with words. So it was just in her body. And having something that she felt safe enough to come cuddle up to her. I mean, there's all kinds of research about just petting, how it lowers cortisol to pet a dog for 10 minutes, to look in a pet's eyes. There's all these different studies out there that are fascinating about how we change biologically by relating with a pet. And they're not scary. It's easy to trust a pet. They always love us and are looking at us the same way. And so that unconditional love goes a really long way.
So a lot of things. So I've had several episodes. Speaking of dogs, my rescues come here trying to get attention while we're talking. Anyways, and she's definitely a psycho dog. She's a rescue, and I call her Mexican rat dog, and she totally is a Mexican rat dog. But again, like I told you, I'm going to go off track all the time, but I'll come back. Several things. So I've had several episodes with organizations that have dogs that support dogs and all that. I've also had one with these dogs that go to court with kids that are going through a traumatic thing because it gives them security and all that. The other thing that I think is pretty fascinating, and I would assume that because you've lived it and breathed it a little bit with your kids, is there's an energy field, especially with horses in particular, because it goes out like, I think it's 10 meters or 30 feet or whatever, or maybe it's 3 meters and 10 feet or something. But that a horse in particular will calm somebody out that's going through any kind of a mental trauma. And I'm assuming, I'm sure that we all have some kind of energy field, and animals in particular can really calm people down. So I'm assuming that's probably part of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And there's so many things about animals. Another squirrel side story, I guess, is that same daughter, she was probably 12, and her therapist came to me and she was like, "We're stuck. Like, we're doing EMDR, we're doing neurofeedback, we're doing play therapy, but I don't feel like we're making any movement with her. I'm not sure what to do. The only thing I can think of is trying equine therapy."
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what you were talking about with horses, we had a local place, and that the gait of the horse was a very specific gait that helped connect left brain, right brain.
Uh-huh.
So every Saturday for a year, we were out there. It was outdoors. So in Utah, sometimes it was snowing and we were all bundled up, and sometimes it was raining and we were all bundled up. But for a year, we went and did that every Saturday, and it helped us get through a patch where it didn't seem like anything else was working.
So how old is she now?
She's 20. She just had her 20th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're an old foster parent.
Yes, we did it for a long time, and now my kids are mostly grown.
Yeah, mine are grown. Well, they're grown. I don't know about mentally grown, but they've grown for sure. Because they got it from their dad.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
So I love this approach, first off. And I'm going to, by the way, I had a cat. Her name was Lily, and I called her a dog cat. She was like more like a dog than a cat. She wanted to hang out with you all the time. Remember, it got so freaky that she started would sleep in my bed and then wake up and she'd be staring at me. I finally wouldn't let her in my room because I'd wake up and I'd see this cat just staring at me. And I go, "What are you doing?" It was the weirdest thing ever. But I wanted to get back to your journey, and this really helps to understand your journey because you've got 4 foster kids and all that kind of stuff. So you've done this, you've seen the benefit of that, and it brought you into the breeding. So explain to me how that worked. I know you went with cats, and then somebody said, "I'd rather have a dog," or whatever. Let's talk about the transition from cats to dogs, and then to transition to what with the big-hearted breeders now. And let's kind of do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's go that journey.
So I actually just closed my cat program down last year, and it was kind of a choice in that I needed, when you do something and you're doing it really well, it helps to specialize.
Sure.
And so that's what we ended up doing. But yeah, as you kind of referred to, I had placed a cat with a college-age student. For any of your listeners that are concerned, I made sure that she was responsible enough to, take good care of a cat. But she was struggling in college, just feeling lonely. And so I was doing a follow-up call with her to see how it was going. And the feedback was so amazing. And I got off the phone, and I remember my biological daughter also struggles with anxiety. And she was at college, and I got on the phone, and I was like, "Why didn't we think of sending you with a cat?" And over the phone, she told me, "Mom, I'm not a cat person. I'm a dog person." And I was like, "Oh, shoot." So I did start looking at dog breeds. I went with a toy AKC breed at the time. And so most of my background, sometimes I get some interesting feedback about doing a hybrid dog now, but most of my background was actually breeding in the purebred world and showing the purebred world. I showed at all levels in both the cat and the dog world. I had the top cat in Tika 1 year in my breed, as well as like the 5th in all breeds in my region. So I have a lot of background in all kinds of things. And I ended up, as I said, kind of phasing out cats and only doing dogs. And I went to a hybrid dog because of the genetic diversity. And I really feel like I got stuck with the breed I was doing, and I couldn't get other breeders to work with me. But what I kind of found too is that when you have a breed that there are very few of them, they're a more rare breed, that even if you go out of the country, they're all more genetically related. And the problems I was seeing were really tied back to what I was hearing was related to being too genetically related. So smaller litter sizes, infant mortality, more health issues long-term, those kinds of things are all tied very closely to genetic diversity. And when I was seeing that, and I realized that in the particular breed I was in, there wasn't a lot of breeders that were open to really being collaborative, I decided to go to a hybrid breed, which got me a lot of flack, actually. I had a lot of people that were very upset with my choice, especially knowing that I'd come from the purebred world. But I have to tell you, we've had healthier dogs than we've ever had. And so I've been really happy with the move.
Well, first question, and I want to get into what you're doing, but were you looking and thinking about being an animal provider? Like I'm not sure I like the term breeder, but maybe it's fine. But were you looking at that prior to the kids, or did that you just kind of that's kind of what when you were looking at a cat for your daughter, and that kind of what does that kind of put you in that world, or was it somewhat of a plan?
No, I really did fall into it. And it was the fact that there was nothing out there like I was looking for close. And when I was seeing the benefits of it with my kids, and I had other people asking me about it, it just started really small and grew from there.
So, what made you decide that a cat would be good for your daughter? I mean, do you remember? Was there an epiphany moment? And you're going, you know what? She's struggling. Maybe if I get her a cat, she'll be great. I don't even. Matter of fact, I can't even imagine thinking of getting a cat for anybody. But let's just go with that. I mean, what happened?
Yeah. So again, we had two dogs, and they were fighting over the dogs all the time. And in our city,
Oh yeah, the four. That's right.
we were only allowed to have two dogs
Yeah.
where we lived. And so I was talking with my sister actually, and she's like, "Hey, I've been thinking about getting a cat, and I've been investigating cat breeds that are more outgoing and more, dog-like." And so I kind of just jumped on the bandwagon, and she never ended up getting one for years. She ended up getting one from me down the road. But it was just difficult because there was nobody local. I saw a need, and I just wanted to help fill the need.
So when you were looking at, because you can only have two dogs, you were looking at cats. Did you think about goldfish?
Fish?
You
Oh,
can get a lot of goldfish. I'm joking. I'm joking.
you can actually get a lot of goldfish, but they're not very cuddly.
Yeah, that's what I heard. And trust me, I've got three kids, and we've had every animal possible in my house, from guinea pigs to goldfish to whatever. We had everything. And at one point, I think we had, I'm trying to think, six dogs. We had a pig, and we had two or three cats at one time. I mean, we were just a menagerie of animals. My kids have always had animals, so I get that part. So let's go to what you're doing now from the standpoint. And I've got a question, because we're going to talk about, for you guys listening, we're going to talk about, I guess, mini golden retrievers. Is that what that you're determining? I know it's not a breed, but how does it become a breed? Can it become a breed? I know like AKC has certain parameters. So how does that happen, or is it even a possibility with what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, if you know the history of golden retrievers, they're actually a mixed breed too. So
Uh-huh.
they were bred with Irish setters, bloodhounds, a couple other breeds that are no longer in existence. And according to folklore, there we go, folklore, a dog that the main guy found off the side of the road that he felt like had the look. And so most of our modern purebred dogs were mixed breeds back in time.
Sure.
And then they work at creating a standard and, making sure that they kind of fit certain rules that whoever founded the breed and then comes in and helps, they put those together. So AKC is taking in new breeds. They do accept new breeds. We're not anywhere close to that at this point, and for a few reasons. As I mentioned earlier, genetic diversity is really a very important sticking point for me, because I saw what it was like to have a breed that didn't have that. And so currently there are very few people doing mini golden retrievers, or working on creating that breed. And if there aren't enough people doing it at the same time, you can see how you get backed into a corner really quick with genetic diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does take centuries, probably, to
Centuries. Wow.
create a new breed, because we're going back to the parent breeds frequently, obviously, to bring in new blood. There's a term called coefficient of inbreeding. So you can either, and in the past that's always been based off of pedigrees, but now when you do genetic testing, you can find out the actual coefficient of inbreeding, which tells you how diverse the genes are, if they're really similar or if there's a lot of diversity there. And so when we do genetic testing, now we can put our two parents if we've tested both of them through a company called Embark, you can pair them together and it will tell you what the offspring should have as coefficient of inbreeding. And so we're very particular about our numbers, and currently there's no way we could breed only to mini Goldens and have that good coefficient of inbreeding. So we're breeding back to Golden Retrievers, we're breeding back to Cocker Spaniels. Some of the breeders in mini Golden breeders do use King Charles Cavalier Spaniels as well. And then Poodles are also one of the 4 breeds that were in that mix before I even started doing it.
So first of all, and I have like 17,000 questions already, but I want to, for the audience, tell people what a mini Golden Retriever is, size and all that. Let's just describe everything, what it is. Now, for you guys listening, there's a different breeds that are mixed in there, but let's kind of stay out of that for the second because it's mixed breed, but let's talk about what a mini Golden Retriever is.
Yeah, so the standard we're trying to create is the look of a Golden Retriever. So that short hair with the classic Golden Retriever head and body in a smaller size. So typically they're between about 30 to 40 pounds is probably the most common size. So they can look kind of like a puppy as an adult.
Okay, so now let's get into, I know you've already talked about it a little bit. Let's talk about how you accomplish that, and that's mixing with other breeds. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about what you're doing with that.
Yeah. So I guess if you're talking about how we do it, number one, I think health testing.
How do you make a Golden Retriever? How do you make a mini Golden Retriever?
So I think it's really important to talk about the health testing because
Yeah.
I hear a lot of feedback about, well, you're just going to get the worst of every breed. And so the way that you kind of try and, have the best rate of success, no matter what you're breeding, whether it's purebred or mixed breed, is you do a lot of health testing up front. So you do x-rays on their hips and their elbows. You see a specialty vet for their patellas and their heart, and you see a specialty ophthalmologist for their eyes. That's kind of the ones that are considered for our mix. If we have King Charles Cavalier in our mix, we go further than what's called a basic cardiac exam, and we do an echocardiogram because that breed is known to have a lot of heart issues. And so most of the time we have if we're doing like a first generation, we'll have like a Golden Retriever as the mom, and then we'll have, usually we're able to get a mix or a Cocker Spaniel for the dad and kind of breed. And then you have your second generation after that when you keep back puppies and you breed again. And then, you're trying to find different lines so that you have, again, that low coefficient of inbreeding, because it's interesting. The low coefficient of inbreeding is what shows that you have the high genetic diversity.
So if I understand it correctly, you start with a female as the Golden Retriever, and you'd use whatever Cocker Spaniel or a Cocker Spaniel mix of something, King Charles or whatever. They breed, they have puppies. At that point, do you just start having the puppies breed together because now you've got the model or whatever the term would be? Is that the way it works? Or do you continue to do Golden Retriever and just make more puppies?
We're bringing in new Golden Retrievers and new lines all the time.
Okay.
So we don't keep puppies and then breed to puppies. They call that line breeding, and sometimes people will use line breeding where they're related to set a certain type. I don't do line breeding because I feel like the genetic diversity is too important for what I do. I feel like before looks, you have to look at health and temperament. And so that's where my big key is. And so we bring in, we had 2 dogs come in from Argentina to be parents in our program. And then we're looking all over the country and even outside the country, obviously, to find the right parents with the right health that pass their health testing and the right temperament. And it's kind of a continual, ongoing major project to keep that genetic diversity high.
So what you're doing is, because you're looking at longevity, I'm sure. So you're looking at within the line of whatever that dog is, it's a golden retriever, the King Charles or whatever, you're looking at they don't have a history of, let's use hip dysplasia as an example. And then you look at the other ones and you're looking at, I'm sure, heart, all the other things too, to get really, you're looking for a healthier dog moving forward. And you do a lot of DNA testing and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. A lot of people don't realize that you can breed two completely healthy dogs together and have a lot of health issues because of the recessive genes they have. So
sure,
they can have recessive genes that are not apparent, that, don't give them an issue. And they're kind of like silent there in their health. And then when you breed two, if they have the same recessive genes, it causes a lot of health issues. And so you have to screen and do genetic testing in order to avoid that.
So I know, like with certain disease states, they'll skip a generation too. So you have to go back probably multiple generations with it. And I don't even know, is that available? I mean, I guess in modern days it is at some level. I guess when you're choosing, you're doing that. Are you going back 2 or 3 generations back to see the mother, I guess the great grandmother, the grandmother, and the mother? Are you doing that kind of stuff too?
So we always track health lines as far back as we can. And I think part of the skipping the generation is actually that recessive gene when we didn't have the health test for it.
That's what I mean.
And so what happens is it wasn't really, it was just recessive in one of the parents. And so the way we kind of talked about it was like, oh, this parent had that issue. And then the next, the offspring didn't have it, but the next one did. And usually it's because of who they were bred to. And then when 2 of them came together with the same recessive gene, which before we didn't even have a way to test for, then it became apparent.
Right.
There are still some health issues that we don't have tests for. Luckily, they have more coming out all the time. So it helps us a lot to breed more with more education and how to, do it more safely.
So the DNA testing can it pinpoint a recessive gene? Can it actually find that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
They have thousands of, I guess I should say hundreds of recessive genes now that are in every test that it will say, you have it or you don't.
You know what I'm finding is I do interviews with animal experts across the board, whatever dingoes to octopus, right? But DNA is making such a big difference in the entire animal world. Looking at like dingoes as an example, they thought that a lot of them were interbred, but they're not. Most of them are really just originally dingoes. But it used to be, I think there were 28 that they could do DNA, but now it's 100 and something. I may be wrong in the numbers, but it's significantly bigger now that you can find out so much more information to really help you make informative decisions.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Like every year that goes by, there's more of the genes that they're identifying and being able to test for so that we can breed better.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
I want to get into the adopt, not shop versus breeding. I think it's an important thing because I think a lot of people are like politics these days. They've got their camp and they don't understand the camp. They don't understand that there's probably a happy medium, right? So when you're looking at that world, I want to talk about, because there's that term ethical breeding. Define that for everybody, because I think in the, the rescue dog world, you're going, oh, there's breeders because they only know about puppy mills and things like that, right? So let's talk about, obviously, I'm assuming that everybody's listening, if they're paying attention, know that already if you're doing DNA testing, you're going way beyond what you typically hear. It's, the backyard breeder that wants to make some money on some dogs, right? So talk to me about what ethical breeding is and what you're doing to make that be more accepted so people don't understand. Adopt, don't shop is a great thing, but there's some problems with that as well as there's with breeding. So let's go into the ethical breeding world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, I grew up with rescue shelter pets, and I've done quite a bit of volunteer work
Right.
and continue, when I was in the cat world, at all our cat shows, we had rescues in. And so I think there's a relationship that could be had more between rescues and breeders if we were a little bit more open to it.
Right.
So the local rescue here actually calls us as cat breeders when they need blood, because they know we have really healthy animals, and we'll take a cat over to donate blood when they need it. So I would love to see more bridges built there. I think you're right. We kind of get into our camps and we decide there's no room for anything else. And I feel like there is a lot of ability there. But to get to your question about ethical breeding, I think ethical breeding comes down to, number one, doing all that you know to produce the healthiest dogs with the best personalities, and then standing behind it. So, for example, we give a lifetime genetic health guarantee with all of our puppies, and we give lifetime support. And if anybody, for any reason, is having a problem with a puppy that we produced, we will take them back, no questions asked. And so I think you have to, ethical breeders are the ones that stand behind what they're doing and do it in the very highest and best way possible that they know.
So I've come to, since you and I started talking and we've been communicating for you guys listening through email and a variety of different things, I've come to a different approach to it. And this is, and I don't think we talked about this. So tell me what you think. So here's my opinion. First off, I'm a big fan of rescue animals, of course. In the way I'm looking at it now, it's like, I think once you become more aware and be more educated, you can look at things differently. So, I grew up in a household that we always had German Shepherds. They were AKC and all that. But we also had, we had a lot of mutts as well. We always had animals. But my mom in particular always wanted German Shepherds, and she wanted AKC because that was whatever. That made it be cool, whatever that was. But when I've been thinking about this since you and I started talking is this. One is that I'm assuming, and I want your input on this, but I'm assuming that when you have people that are, and I think everybody's responsible in their own way, they sometimes don't realize they're not as responsible as they think. Best intentions is probably a better way of saying it. So if I go to adopt a dog at a shelter and I get this dog that's, whatever age it may be, I don't know their temperament. I'm assuming it's going to be good. I get there. I don't have a monetary investment in it, but I'm hoping for the best dog. And I get this dog, and this dog's this crazy dog or whatever. And I go, I'm going to take this dog back or whatever, right? So I think that, I'm not saying that that's a regular thing, but I'm sure it happens pretty regularly. On the other side of the coin, and that's how I've got my dogs, but on the other side of the coin, if you've got an ethical breeder, I'm going to use my new term, you have an ethical breeder that's raising animals that have a certain temperament, that I can, as a pet owner, look for an animal. I want one that's a lap dog, or I want one that loves to go running, or whatever that may be. A designer dog, not designer, I hate that term, but a dog that fits into whatever I'm looking for in an animal. I have a monetary expense, but I'm also getting, I kind of have a good idea what I'm going to get, right? So I'm assuming that these dogs that end up going back, the rescue dogs end up going back, it's a lot less in your world. So I think there's a fine line. There are a lot of people get along with any kind of dog, so it doesn't really matter. But there's some people just aren't built, they're just not wired that way. Is that kind of how I look at it? Or I'm sure mine's simple. So let's go in a broader term. What's your opinion on what I just said, even though I babbled for too long?
No, I loved it. So I think about a lot of people that come to me are in a similar situation to what I was, where they have a daughter that wants a dog that can be a great companion dog. Uh-huh. And when you're looking for an animal for a child, or to fill kind of that role, you really not only want a dog that you have a good history on, that you've got some backing for the temperament, but also the health, because you want a dog that can stay and be that companion for as long as possible for the child.
Right.
And so it's just a different decision. I don't think either are wrong. I think it depends on where you're at and what your goals are and what the needs are that you're kind of working with.
But do you think that and again, this is just me, using my simple mind, but I would assume that less dogs that are from a responsible, ethical breeder are returned than dogs that have come from the pound because they don't know what they're getting. This is a cute dog. I know it's going to be a great dog. Like my dog is walking around. She's the craziest dog ever, but I'm just a dog person. She's a challenge, but she's a sweet dog, but she's a challenge. And I guarantee whatever's in her genes are crazy, but trust me. But there are other people that they wouldn't have kept her.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and she's the sweetest dog ever, but she's also, a challenging dog.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go there. And so, but with somebody like yourself, depending on whatever the breed may be, one is the longevity thing is, I think, is an interesting thing. I just did an episode with somebody, it's a veterinarian, about longevity vets. And so as we live longer, we want our best friends to be with us as long as we can. We want them to be healthy in that. If you live a long enough time, you're going to have multiple dogs, but wouldn't it be great if they could live a little bit longer with you? Instead of 12 years, it's 18 years, and they're healthy and all that kind of stuff. So that makes some sense as well. But the other thing is the temperament. And I think that different people need different temperaments. So I would assume that that's part of your game. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean it as a bad word, by the way. It's part of your plan.
Yeah. I mean, well, obviously temperament is key in how I place. I mean, I came from seeing how amazing kids were in my home and wanting to replicate that for other homes. And so I think, and I'm not an expert by any means in, evaluating temperament in shelter dogs and stuff, but I do know when we've gotten dogs from the shelter and you go through and you work with them in the shelter and you pick a dog, sometimes their personality radically changes. At least that's what we experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in like this sad environment and it's hard. And then you get them home and they're more themselves. And so sometimes it's a little bit of a surprise what you get. And I think the way to kind of go around that is if your shelter has the dogs in home environments and they have families that are kind of raising them, then you can kind of see, or talk to someone that knows a little bit more. But I think that makes it tricky sometimes to know what you're really getting, and where I can see how it could be a case like you're saying where you're not really sure what temperament you're getting.
And I think with best intentions, everybody doesn't really know what they really want. And then they get something, I didn't think I signed up for that thing.
Yeah.
That kind of a deal. And it's a lot of work. There's one thing I read, and I may be wrong in this, so more than likely. But you also do with some of your animals, they live in foster homes, the animals do. Is that true? Walk me through that. I love that idea, by the way.
Yeah. So as we're talking about the fact that I have to have all these animals going on to, in order to get low coefficient of inbreeding and high genetic diversity, a lot of our dogs, I wouldn't say a lot, but some of our dogs we buy from people that some of them health test, some of them don't. And so when we go through health testing, even our ones that we buy from people that health test and we do our health testing, sometimes they fail. And so we have to have quite a few animals that we're working with in order to produce that low coefficient of inbreeding. And so we use what we call guardian homes. So when we get a puppy, we'll talk to families in our area and screen homes, and the puppy will go live with them, and they'll be raised in a family environment, and they'll have their, all their love of and all the adventure of being in a normal family. And then when they get old enough, which is about a year old, we go in and we do our first round of health testing. And if they fail, then they're washed out of the program and they belong to the family. If they pass, then when they get a little older, we do some more screening, and then they come to us for breeding, and then they have their pregnancy with the family, and then they come to us to deliver and raise the puppies. And that just kind of gives our dogs the ability to have more of a home life, and have like a set place that they go when they age out of breeding.
Did you know that guide dogs for the blind, that they're raised in foster families?
Yeah.
So they raise the puppies, and they have to go through this thing. I could never do that. If I raised a puppy for a year, it's staying with me, But and I always say, we did an episode on that, and I'm really impressed by the foster parents on that part, because that would be a really difficult thing, because you build this relationship and you pass it on, but of course you're helping somebody that's got mobility issues or whatever the thing is. But I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a little different with us, because if you're a guardian home, you get to keep the dog. With us, as long as they're clearing with the reproductive vet, they have a total of 4 litters, and then they're spayed or neutered and retired. So it's not quite as much of a sacrifice as those amazing families that do the guide dog for the blind.
Well, that's something I hadn't read, and we hadn't talked about. So it's 4 litters, and they're done after that. And typically it litters once a year or every 2 years. How does that work?
So we work with our reproductive vet, and the current research coming out of the reproductive world is that you breed back to back once, and then you skip a heat cycle, and then you breed back to back, and then you spay. And so all of our...
So they're young.
Yeah, because the truth is, the more heat cycles they go through, there's more of a estrogen dump. There's more chance of an uterine infection called pyometra. And so the research shows that it's good to have them kind of done earlier rather than later. The litters are healthier. And so we do clear our dogs with a repro vet. So we've got 2 amazing repro clinics in our area. And so the vets help us make those decisions. But that's what the research is showing.
Well, there's a term I never heard about, repro vet. I didn't even know that they had existed. And I'm in the animal world, so it's pretty funny. Did you know that there's science out there that says that being spare and neuter is really not that healthy for the animals? They're actually talking about tying their tubes and actually having vasectomies. A lot of vets don't do it, but actually healthily wise, because of hormones and things like that, it's actually better to do it the other way. Most vets in vet school don't even learn that.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about ovary spaying spays, where they leave the ovaries in, but they take the uterus, because it's really the uterus that has the biggest chance of causing some health issues with that pyometra,
right?
Which it can be fatal, and so it's a big deal. And so, I've been reading the research recently about ovary sparing spays, and kind of keep up to date with all of that.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's definitely fascinating. I don't have many vets in my area that do that regularly. And so
most don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're I don't know how many there are, but there's definitely saying it's healthier. I mean, when you're doing spay and neuter programs in third world countries, that's a different story. But for that, I don't know that many do it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely kind of something that isn't really talked about, or that most vets have much practice with. So right now, our recommendations to our clients, because of the breeds that we use, there was a university that did research on like kind of what's the best age if you're going to spay or neuter, and it was right around a year for the breeds that we use. To have the growth plates close and have, the hormones that are needed for olive growth to kind of happen. So that's what we talk to our families about, because that's the research that we have. But I love reading new research. So if any of your listeners have new research coming out, or you have any, it's always fascinating to me.
So tell me about mini golden retrievers and what their person is like and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so mini golden retrievers, what we breed for is that classic golden personality, which is outgoing, slightly goofy, confident, loves to be with people, food motivated, just kind of your all-round classic family dog.
And so if I want, and what I like about, my dog is about 45 pounds. So she's a big mini golden retriever, even though she's a Mexican rat dog. But anyways, I love that size, unless people want really big dogs. It seems to me small to medium sized dogs are just easier to take care of.
Yeah. And a lot of people are living in smaller spaces than we ever have. And definitely when you look at the trends of what people are looking for, it is a smaller dog.
Cool. So what else can we talk to everybody? What have we left out in this thing here? What have we left out?
I guess the thing that we haven't talked about is after I kind of learned a lot about breeding, I decided to help other breeders be more ethical. So,
Oh, yeah, that's right. I wanted to go into that.
yeah, so I have a community. It's called the BHB community. It stands for Big Hearted Breeder Community. And we put on free summits. I bring in veterinarians and all kinds of different experts, as well as just topics that are important to breeders. And we do virtual summits once a quarter. And we do a live event together once a year. And it's a lot of fun. I honestly kind of put it together a little bit selfishly because I love education and I couldn't find a whole lot of it. And I had a lot of questions myself. And this was a way for me to ask experts to come in and share topics that I was passionate about. And with an audience, people like to come and share when they can impact and help more people. And so it ended up being a great way for me to learn more and connect with other breeders that were like-minded.
Well, yeah, you're creating an organization that's all, again, I'm going to use the term ethical breeders, right, at the end of the day. And I think one of those things you talk about stem cells, I think that would be a really good thing.
Yes, we already talked about offline about having it on. And I definitely, when you were talking about that, I think there's so much we don't know about. And we all have things we can't do better than what we know. We have to have more information to do better. And it's the same in any walk of life. And so by bringing in topics that maybe we had no clue were there, and we had someone came on last year and talked about monoclonal antibodies. I don't know if you guys have talked about that on here yet.
No, I know about it. I haven't talked about it on here, but I know all about it.
Yeah. So at the time, monoclonal antibodies for parvo was kind of breaking edge, new news. And so being able to bring in new research, new topics, new things is always a wonderful thing.
So let's go to how everybody can find you. Let's go to your website. Let's talk in social media. And by the way, everybody's listening, as I always mention, it's all in the description. But if you guys don't want to go back to the description, tell everybody how to find you. If you're a breeder, how they can actually join your organization or your group, but also social media and all that kind of stuff. How do they find you?
Yeah, so for anybody wanting to know more about mini golden retrievers or about just holistic tips for pets, I'm on almost every social media channel with Big Hearted Breeders. And that's kind of my channel for my mini golden retrievers and what I do with educating around pet care and things. And then for breeders, it's BHB Community. We have a pretty large Facebook group that you can join, as well as BHB Community website. All of our information's there.
Good. And again, as I said earlier, just go to the description of the episode, wherever you get your podcast, and it'll be in there. Now we're at that time. We're going to tell a joke. As well, everybody that listens knows, I know you're cringing because guess what? You're lucky today. It's not me. Heather's going to tell a joke today. But as I always say, if you want to be on the show and you want to tell a joke, you can email me, or you can have your grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever. Please email me, because I gladly will have you on, and I always respond to everybody on that. And lastly, too, if you've got a great idea for the show, email me as well, because I get back to everybody, and that's at thefurrealpodcast.com. So Heather, you're the comedian of the day. Let's hear your great joke.
I have two, just in case one's a total bomb.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I'm worried I might be taking one of your old jokes, so we'll see how this goes.
No, you won't.
What do you call a great dog detective?
What do you call a great dog detective? A retriever?
Sherlock Bones.
Oh, I like that one. That's a good one. What's your other one?
What do a dog and a cell phone have in common?
I don't know. What do they have in common?
Caller ID.
Oh, good. So I have one for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, what did the golden retriever say when it sat on the sandpaper?
I don't know. What did it say?
Rough.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
That's how bad mine are. But anyways, first off, thank you so much for being on the show. You know, one of the things, as you well know, and before I say goodbye for the audience, I was really cautious about having a breeder on, and I wanted somebody that it was, I mean, my new term, ethical breeder on. So for you guys that may be the adopt, don't shop, hopefully, I think you may have a little different view at this point. And I think either way is good as long as it's ethical on either side at the end of the day. But seriously though, Heather, thanks so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And the other thing that I'll give, because I know sometimes it's tricky to know if you're talking to an ethical breeder or not. I have a short ebook. I'll give you the link. We'll put it in the show notes so that if you're looking at potentially working with a breeder, that you know what questions to ask and what to look for.
Well, thank you. And I think it was valuable for me, just from me looking at it from a different point of view. So I really do appreciate everything.
Yeah, happy to be on, and thanks for having me.
And then for everybody else that's listening, you know, as I always say, be kind to animals. And also, if you're an animal lover, you're also a treat dealer. But more importantly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening. For real.
That concludes this episode of For Real with your host, Mark Kyle. For previous and future episodes of For Real, listen via all major podcast streaming sites.